Hi, and welcome to this introduction for Rhino3D. I just want to give you a bit of a tour about the software and make the case on how it can benefit you in your personal development if you're interested into surfacing, rendering, and prototyping an object, whatever it may be. When it comes to the background of Rhino 3D, it was a software that was used as a plugin back in the 90s for AutoCAD. It was just a plugin because AutoCAD struggled in making complex 3D shapes, and so Rhino 3D was an add-on, and it allowed for people in naval architecture to create complex shapes. So Rhino is a software that has been developed and is still developed in Seattle, Washington, USA. And obviously, because it's right next by the sea, well, that's where it started, for naval architecture. But then towards the late 90s, they made a Rhino 1.0 beta version, which became a standalone and was available to everybody. So a lot of people in industrial design were really interested in Rhino from the get-go because it allowed people to create very complex organic shapes using NURBS, and I'm going to get to NURBS, what it means exactly later on. But it was free at the time, and the only software for industrial designers to use for NURBS capability was Alias Wavefront, which was a very expensive software. And so a lot of people in product design, in industrial design, converged towards Rhino 3D, and it was the same for my case, and start practicing and using it, and could clearly see the appeal about that software. So towards the beginning of 2000, industrial designers got interested, and now you've got people from the jewelry, the furniture design, architects, engineers, and hobbyists who are all interested in using Rhino nowadays. So it's an extremely popular software around the world. It's not just for naval architecture, it's for industrial designers, architects, and so on. Okay, so if you're interested in the world of design, of making things, you might want to stick around and see how it can really help you. Just to give you a quick glimpse of who are the customers, well, it's very diversified. It can range from the small company where there's like one or two people to the multinationals. In my case, I work at a big company called Bombardier Aerospace. We're the third largest aircraft manufacturer for commercial and private jets. And we have a couple of designers. We're a couple of industrial designers who are using Rhino combined with CATIA V5. And we do our daily jobs with using Rhino 3D as our main tool. And you can see that's just a small list of different companies that are using Rhino. So obviously in the naval architecture, luxury yachts and all that stuff, Rhino is quite popular. But recreational products like BRP or Bombardier Transportations, which are manufacturers for trains and subways, and other companies that you can see here. This is just a small sample of who are using Rhino licenses. The great thing about Rhino is that you can exchange so many different file formats. You can exchange as an IGES, OBJ, 3ds, Adobe Illustrator format, PDF formats, etc., etc. So it's a very, very convenient software to work with because I can exchange my 3D models or my 2D line drawings, all done in Rhino, and export, for example, in the Adobe suite. So I can use it with Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and I'll show you some little examples of what I can achieve with those. And you can exchange easily with Revit or AutoCAD because obviously Rhino was a plugin for AutoCAD, so it works beautifully with AutoCAD also. It works very well with CATIA V5 because I use it myself at work. So Rhino and engineering packages like SolidWorks, it's not an issue. And of course, I also have experience with Cinema 4D and Modo, so I don't hesitate to export my NURBS surfaces into a polygon-based software package like 3ds Max, and I export typically as an OBJ file. And finally, for prototyping, I do all my work again in Rhino and I export as an STL file for rapid prototyping, and it works beautifully. I never had any problems, and I also used it for doing CNC work. So if I want to cut as a CNC, typically I use the step format and it works very nicely. Now, I told you about Rhino, it's working with NURBS. Okay, so NURBS basically stands for non-uniform rational B-splines, which is basically a mathematical equation, and it's the best way to describe a surface using mathematical equations, and you cannot get any more precise than that. Okay, these are what we call engineering surfaces, if you want to put it that way. And software packages like CATIA V5, SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Space Claim, and all these other engineering packages, they all work with NURBS. So from exchanging files from one package to another, it's very easy, very convenient. Like I said, I use typically the step file or the IGES file, and it works very well like that. Back and forth between Rhino and the Dassault system suite, for example. And the difference between NURBS surfaces versus what we call typically the polygonal modeling or subdivision surfacing used in packages like Autodesk, 3ds Max, sorry, Modo or Cinema 4D. Well, in polygons, when you work with polygons, it is awesome to work with for doing animation, because you can control the amount of polygons and add the level of detail that you want. And you can use it for animation, for making movies, special effects, gaming. In the gaming industry, it's very popular. Unfortunately, you will never have the level of precision that you would need to manufacture something, so that's why Rhino would be a better compromise. But nowadays computers are so powerful that you can do very nice renderings with using directly from NURBS. It's not an issue anymore. It used to be an issue like 15 years ago, where computers were sort of limited with their graphics cards and their CPUs, but now you can do easy animations and beautiful renderings all within Rhino, and I'll show you some examples. So Rhino, the other advantage of Rhino is that it comes with a huge amount of plugins. It's just staggering. So you've got plugins for rendering. So for example, Maxwell Render and Viri, which are like basically industry standards for rendering. You also have Brazil for Rhino, which is a high-end renderer that is embedded within Rhino. But Viri and Maxwell are also embedded within Rhino, so it's not an issue. You've got Orca 3D for people in naval architecture. Clayu is interesting. It's a little software designed in Spain, and it allows you to do subdivision surfacing within the Rhino environment and then convert these subdivided surfaces into NURBS surfaces. So Clayu is fully embedded within Rhino, and it's pretty impressive, and I invite you to check out their demo. Grasshopper is another very interesting plugin. It's a plugin that allows you to create, I would say, abstract surfaces, but you can also do like furniture design and stuff like that, all parametric. It's a very, very powerful plugin, and if you're interested into working with parametric surfaces or solids within Rhino, I invite you to check out Grasshopper. This plugin comes in for free, and for Rhino V6, it will be fully embedded within the software. Okay, so check out Grasshopper. So you've got Rhino Cam, Rhino Gold, and so many others, and you can check out on Rhino's webpage all the different plugins that can suit you. Okay. The next one, it's other plugins. So Bongo is for animation. You can use it for inverse kinematics or traditional animations. Penguin, for example, is for cartoon renderings. And Flamingo is another photorealistic renderer plugin that is embedded within Rhino. And it's made by the same manufacturers as the Rhino software. So it's called Robert McNeil and Associates. So you can check them out for yourselves. In my case, I like to work with Bongo to do nice animations, and it works very well. And it's very easy to use, very user-friendly. So where do you get all this information? Just go to rhino3d.com. Okay, the commercial license is $995, and the student license is $195. The free demo version is good for 90 days, and After 90 days, it will not lock itself up. It's just that you won't be able to save after 90 days, but you can still practice and work with Rhino. You've got all the same tools as the commercial license, everything, nothing is locked. The other great thing about Rhino is that when you're a student and you have a student license, it's perpetual. It's not like other packages where it's locked after 1 year. Student licenses in Rhino are perpetual. You will get all what we call the service release. So the programmers, they always release what the service releases, because there are some little bugs here and there, and they come up with patches, so you have access to all the patches and they're free, and you just install them and you've got the latest version of Rhino, and it's perpetual. So that's beautiful, and the prices are very attractive compared to other software packages. Okay, so the commercial license is only, it might sound a lot for some, but compared to other software, 3D software, I can tell you that it's quite cheap, and you get a lot of power with Rhino. So if you go in the download section of the webpage, rhino3d.com, you can download either the version for Mac or for Windows, and you can try them out for yourself for free. And I advise you to go and check out their webpage. So for example, if you go in the Learn tab, you have tutorials for Rhino for Windows and Rhino for Mac tutorials. So there are other great videos in there. And what I would advise you, if you're interested in following my tutorials, I advise you to just download the level 1 and level 2 manuals, and I'll do some little demos based on these PDF documents, just a few, so that you can practice step by step. But I have also my own tutorials, quite a few of them actually, that I go into greater details, and that way I can make sure that you benefit as much as possible in your learning process with Rhino. Okay, so don't hesitate to go into the Learn tab and download the level 1 and level 2 manuals, and then you'll be able to follow along with some little exercises that I'm doing in my videos. Okay, also I invite you to go and check out their forum. So in their forum, it's one of the best, if not the best, community that I know of. People are always there to help you out if you're stuck. So create yourself a profile, and if you're stuck in a little problem that you're unable to find a solution to, just upload your file, or just send them a message, and people will try and help you out, converge, and see how they can help you in your problem. Okay. These are some examples that I typically do with Rhino. So I do a lot of surfacing and renderings. I use in this case Maxwell Render to do the exterior shots, and it's a very stable program, very stable software. You don't need a very powerful computer, a laptop with maybe 8 gigs of RAM, a gaming card, a dedicated gaming card like a NVIDIA GeForce will suffice plenty, and you can do this type of stuff, so you do, I do typically a lot of surfacing work for exteriors as well as interiors. So here are some examples that I do that you can see, and I'm quite pleased. So I also work obviously with Photoshop to do the final adjustment, add my final touches, and then just present it to customers. Some interior shots. So typically for the interiors, I like to use V-Ray for Rhino. It's very fast and it's very photorealistic as well. So I just do my work and render it away. And here are some little glimpses of what Rhino combined with V-Ray can do for you. Okay. And I will, in my videos, I will make some little videos showing you how I use, for example, Maxwell, how do I prepare my renderings and all that stuff. Here's an example of how I use Rhino to rapid prototype and to cut in a CNC machine. So basically you can see I worked on what we call a side ledge for a corporate jet, and I just created different parts, what you see in a light blue color. This is for rapid prototyping, and the rest it's made out of high density foam that was cut on a CNC machine, and I just joined all the surfaces together. I had to surface everything and join them together and then do the final assembly. And Rhino works really well for that. I've got tools to analyze where there are any gaps or anything like that, and there you go. Okay. Some example also that I like. I'm a big fan of car design. I love cars. I love the beauty, the complexity of their shapes. And again, Rhino allows me to achieve good results. I'm quite happy with it, you know. And it just takes a bit of practice. And then once you get the hang of it, you know, your imagination is your limit, you know. So these are some little examples of what I like to do in my spare time. The shoot for this rendering here, I used Rhino 3D. In the uppercase, I just did a Rhino render and I used Photoshop where I created this sort of watercolor effect also. Okay, what I recommend. Okay. Knowing to do surfacing and all that stuff, that's great, and that's not an issue. But if you really want to increase your design skill, I recommend that you familiarize yourself with three views, how to develop your object on three different views. So you have to understand the basics of technical drafting, for example, how to decompose a product into three views, one from the side, one from the top, one from the front, and it doesn't have to be something really how can I say, you don't need to be like obsessed about technical drafting, just the basics so that you know how to project the basic lines. As you can see in this sketch that I did, it's a very simple sketch that I just projected, you know, from top, front and side view, and you know it's filled with mistakes, but enough so that I can understand how I'm going to be able to surface my product later on. So it's just to organize your thoughts before you start surfacing. So practice your hand sketches, practice your technical drawing skills a little bit. It doesn't, like I said, you don't need to be Michelangelo to be able to draw. It's just to organize your thought, and then you go into the surfacing part where you do it all in Rhino, and then okay, it comes along, and then you, in this example, I did a rapid prototype of my imagined product. Okay, so don't hesitate to practice a bit your hand sketches so that you can organize your thoughts. The other thing that I want to insist on is to be patient and persevere. Okay, and it's true for everything in life. You have to be very patient, you have to keep at it, and then it becomes second nature after a while. Okay, it depends on your motivation and how bad you want it, but if you're motivated and you practice on a regular basis, you do all the homeworks, all the assignments, then you will not have any problems after a couple of weeks of being able to surface what you want. Okay, so that's it. Some other examples. You know, Rhino is known for surfacing, but I can tell you that you can do solid mechanical parts also. So once I've done my surfaces, I join them all together. It becomes a solid, and once it's a solid, or in the Rhino terms, it's called a closed polysurface. So once it's a solid, I can use it to rapid prototype, and I built many mock-ups. And I do some brackets and stuff like that, and I just rapid prototype them straight out of Rhino. I don't need packages necessarily like CATIA or SolidWorks. I can do it within Rhino. Of course, Rhino is well known for surfacing, so whenever you're doing very organic shapes, and you can see in the seat cushions that I had to work with, well, you know, you can add all the stitches, all the seam lines, and my belief is that if you are able to surface, if you're capable of surfacing, you can basically model anything you want. Okay, it's not like with solid modelers that you can do only mechanical parts, brackets, and stuff like that. Surfacing modeling is a very powerful tool, and with Rhino the learning curve is very easy compared to other surfacing packages. I can tell you that. So these were some examples here that you see from students that they've made after just 10 weeks of continuous work with Rhino, and I have to say that I'm quite proud of my students. They do amazing work and they achieved great results, and I always got great feedback how they appreciated using the software. It really opened up their minds, and I guess it's going to be part of them now in their professional careers. Okay, so these are some examples of some of their work. So that's it. That's all I wanted to show you for Rhino, and I hope you're going to tag along and learn and benefit from my tutorials. Thank you for your attention. Take care.